Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about how to further organize your Google Drive. If you have not already seen my previous video on how to start the organization process, then please go have a look at that now. You'll need to follow the steps that I discussed in that video before being able to follow along with the steps that we discussed in this video. Now, I do want to say that there is nothing wrong with leaving your Google Drive the way that we discussed in my previous video. However, if you are looking to make your Google Drive just that much more organized, then stay tuned and follow along with this video to see what you can do next. In this video, I will be discussing my top 3 tips on how to further organize your Google Drive. So let's start off with tip number 1. Organize your folders by color. This is often extremely helpful for visual learners, but can be useful and helpful for really anyone. So the way that you change the color of the folder is by either right-clicking or pressing 2 fingers down on the tracking pad while hovering over the folder, and you will get a drop down that looks like this, and then you can just scroll down to change color, and then you have all of these options to choose from. So let's go with green, and as you can see, after we change the color, the folder then changed to green. So now let's open up this folder, and we have all of these folders here that we created in the previous video. So let's go in and change some of the folder colors here. So if we want to change English, let's see, we can change this to blue. And let's say we change math to red. We'll do personal project to yellow. And then you can continue on for however many folders you have, changing them to the color that you feel best suits that particular folder. Now, I would recommend that if you have other materials for a certain subject, so for example, if you have a binder or a notebook or a folder for your math class, I would try to keep them all the same color and have that color match the color of your Google Drive folder. So in this case, we decided that math would have the red folder. Ideally, you would then want to have a red binder, notebook, or folder for math as well. The reason why I suggest doing that is that it just helps you to be a little bit more organized. You can just easily see the color if it's in your bag or your locker. You can just grab it and go to the next class, and you won't really run into trouble with, potentially grabbing the wrong folder as you are going throughout your school day. I would also recommend that when you pick a color for one of your classes, that you keep that same color from year to year. So for instance, here we had a blue folder for English, a red folder for math for, this 2020-2021 school year. I would recommend keeping those same colors for next school year as well. The purpose in keeping the colors the same from year to year is just so that way there's no transition period at the start of a new school year where you might grab a notebook thinking that it was a color that you used last year, but you had decided to switch colors this year, and then you end up accidentally grabbing the wrong material. So my 2 tips as far as the colors of folders go is keeping all of your materials, whether they're digital or paper, the same color, and also keep that color from year to year. Moving on to tip number 2, make smaller folders within each larger folder. What I mean by that is, let's see, if we open up our English folder, I would recommend making folders for each unit that you are going to have in English over the course of the year. Now, obviously, if you are watching this video or you are doing this before the school year actually starts, you probably won't know the unit names. However, what you can do is create folders titled Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, and Unit 4. I would recommend making at least 4 units per class. Now, once you actually are in that class, you might find that you have less than 4 or more than 4. But if you have a year-long course, I'd say starting out with having 4 folders for each of the potential 4 units is probably a good number to start with. So as the year goes on, you can then go in and rename each of the folders to the appropriate unit name. So for example, we are in our English folder. Let's say you're reading To Kill a Mockingbird. So we would want to go in and right click and rename this folder to Kill a Mockingbird, just like that. And then as you move on from the first unit to the second unit to the third and fourth, you would obviously just go in and do the same thing, right click and rename and change the folder to the appropriate unit name. We can even take this a step further. If we open up the To Kill a Mockingbird folder, you'll find that oftentimes as you're working in a unit, you will have work that is grouped into different categories. So for example, you might have to take chapter notes. You can make sure that those are all organized within the same folder. You might have a group project. Having its own folder will just keep everything in one place. And let's see, maybe you have a final assessment. And then everything for that final assessment would then go into this folder. Having smaller folders within the larger folders just keeps everything even more organized. Everything is in its place. It's really easy to find when you're looking for it, and there's much smaller of a chance you would struggle to find a particular document or a Google Sheet or something like that if you have smaller, more detailed folders like we've done here. Tip number 3, title and date everything. I really can't stress this enough. I see time and time again that students either don't put a title on a document or don't include a date, and it really just makes things more difficult to find, difficult to keep track of when you've worked on something. So I really, really highly recommend that whether it be in digital format or paper format, you always include a title and you always include the date. So let's see that put into practice. Let's open up the chapter notes folder. We are going to open up a new Google Doc within this folder. So you can see that whenever you open up a new Google Doc, up here it always says untitled document until you decide to rename it. Now if we start writing, say text down here, even though we've already started writing in the document, it still stays as an untitled document. So if you were to write a whole paper or a whole assignment and not go in and click on this box right here, the title of this document would just stay untitled document. Now, if we click on it, you see that it comes up with the first line of text that we have. Oftentimes, the first line of text is not what the actual title of a document should be. So if we want to go in and title this doc appropriately, let's see, we are in the folder titled Chapter Notes. We are going to assume that this is a document that has chapter notes in it. So we'll say Chapter 1 Notes. Now, once you have your document appropriately titled, we want to remember to include a date on anything that we do. Now, even though Google Docs does automatically save and it keeps a timestamp of your work, it's really good to just get in the habit of writing the date every time you go into a document to take notes or work on something. It will help you keep track of when you worked on the assignment, and it'll just keep everything neat and orderly. So let's go in here. We'll say it's the 1st of September. And there we go. So if you do this every time you take notes, whether it's on chapter 1 or whatever other chapter you're doing, you'll just be able to easily see when it was that you took the notes. Now that I've gone over my top 3 tips, I do have one final bonus tip. I did discuss this in my previous video on how to organize your Google Drive, but I feel that it's so important that it should be addressed in this video as well. So let's go back to our Google Drive. And let's see, we'll open this folder. You want to make sure that whenever you open up a new document or a new sheets or a new slides, that you are in the folder that that new document should be placed in. What I mean by that is when we opened up this Chapter 1 Notes doc, we had already opened up the appropriate school year folder, the English folder, the To Kill a Mockingbird folder, and then the Chapter Notes folder. So when we clicked on this new button, we were already in the chapter notes folder. Now, if we go back to just our general school year folder, if we open up a new doc here, and let's say we titled this Chapter 2 Notes, we go back to Google Drive, you'll see that the Chapter 2 notes are just hanging out down here. They're not in any folder there except for the 2020-2021 school year folder. So they're not even in the English folder because we hadn't even opened that when we hit this new button. So you always want to make sure that you have the smallest folder or the most detailed folder open before hitting this new button, because you want to make sure that when you do hit this new button and choose a new document to open, that it is in the appropriate folder. So those are my top 3 tips plus an extra bonus tip on how to further organize your Google Drive. I hope you found this beneficial and helpful. Please be sure to check back for future videos or leave a comment below if there is a certain topic that you would like me to make a video on in the future. Thanks for watching.